Okay, so I'm sorry if you couldn't hear from the last video. I had to stop it because there were a few changes I needed to make. Now I didn't change anything big, but I thought it would be good to bring it into parts. Now, if you notice that my thing does look a bit different, is because I added two things. One was I added the fill of 25, 100, 200, and then the no stroke. No stroke basically means that if there was a stroke, there would be basically like an outline. The thing would be black. And then the fill is RGB again, 25 red, 100 green, and 200 blue, which is why the thing is mostly blue. Again, I basically doubled it. You could just done 200 blue and you still probably got a much difference. This shows that there is a variation in colors. Again, not much difference. So one thing that you guys can do is we can also add more shapes. Meaning, you can also add, go back to the references, you can also start to add a bit more shapes. Now, I was talking too fast, so my microphone wasn't working again, I apologize. One thing I could actually tell you is that at the end of the video, I'm going to be sending you links to find the things that I've been doing, and you guys can link your stuff below in the comments, so I can also see what you guys are doing, because I'm pretty sure you guys can create wonderful things. Let's come here, and let's find the reference to make, let's say I want to make a square. Squares are pretty basic. So if we take this line of code, again, also one more thing, I'll save it later. Now obviously, what's the problem? The two are next to each other. We'll move them in a bit. One thing you guys can do is that you guys can always do Shift Tab. Shift Tab basically does is it gives you guys more space. And one thing about layering is the order of the objects that occur. I first brought the ellipse, then I brought the square. One problem, notice how the numbers 20 and 30 aren't much apart. So let's make this instead 50. Okay, but I don't feel that's enough. Let's just make this a whopping 60. And if that doesn't feel enough, let's make this 75. And to even change this thing further, let's add 100. This basically makes it round as well, but we don't want it to be round, so let's just make it 1. 1 kind of doesn't give it much variations. So what does this shape itself mean? Shape means that, remember, this is a square with 4 sides, but how come with the ellipse there were 4 and with the square only 3? This says, draw a square location 30, 20 with a side of 55. Now remember, if you forgot, squares, length, and width are always the same, so it knows that you probably want this size to be the same shape, which basically means that this is 75 by 75. But let's make these a bit further. Let's make this 80, I guess. So, okay, right, now we have a fair distance apart. Now obviously, again, we haven't done much. I'm just going to catch up. Meantime, well, you guys can pause the video, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to actually go through the references. In the references, I can teach you to make so much more. Let's look at some more references. So here, this is where was our basic shape. One thing I probably want to do is I'd like to change the color. Now, if you noticed, if you just look very carefully inside, I know I can't zoom in, but if you guys can look, you guys can both see that there is no stroke. Let's say you do want to make a stroke for this. What do you do? Well, let's move this thing a bit back. Let's move this to 12. Again, it doesn't change anything. Even with two lines of code that we can create. We can also add a fill. Let's look for a nice fill. Let's look at some reference fills. Okay, so we got some interesting fills. One more thing I want to show you guys is the color mode. Yes, now look at that. The color mode is probably one of my favorite things to look at. Now it's no stroke basically, but it's also a color mode. So it's RGB, all red, green, and blue in 100. Now we're not going to create anything like this, but these are, you might call them masterpieces. These were interesting colors of the rainbow. You might kind of get like this kind of reflection light from like a CD disc, or like when rainbows there. So you guys are familiar with these colors. We're not gonna make this now, but if you want to go ahead and look at them, if you think you can understand this stuff. But I'm just following along with the basics. I do not want to explore this. This itself looks a bit scary for a lot of people. I know that, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are already confused. So let's go back to the references. I don't know what you've been looking at, but there are a lot of great references we can use. One thing is brightness. The brightness is like this, so there is a no stroke, but you can change the color much to HS. Okay, and then again, this is a bit much for a few of you guys, so let's just look for shapes. In our shapes, and what we're doing, oh yeah, we were going to find a fill. So first, let's find the fill. So, oh yeah, fill. So let's say we do this. First we do the fill and then we do the shape. So let's look at an interesting fill. And what do we want the fill to be? Let's make this fill actually let's do 80, 40, and 70. Now look at that. It kind of blends in with the background, kind of giving it a different kind of color. Now remember, if you guys ever always want to create comments, do a slash slash, which is comments. But I'm not gonna do them because I don't necessarily need them. Okay. So now I think we've got the basics of it. You guys can start getting creative. If you want to stick with my drawing, stick with me. If you've been doing your own thing for this entire time, great job. If you don't forget my earlier video and other problems with hearing it, there might be for this one too. Slow it down just a bit. I know I went a bit fast in that video. I'm gonna slow it down. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is let's look at if you guys, this is one thing I really want to show you that's I think pretty interesting. In the reference, you can find it. Is it color? No, it's not. It's not color. Looking for it. Oh, I don't think it's there. Or yeah, here it is. Attributes. Stroke weight. Stroke weight, I think, is something really cool. You put it at the end of you could put it at the end of the shape, or you do the line and stroke width. Stroke width basically means how thick the outline is gonna be. Okay. So what we could do for the stroke width is 4 here. If we do want to put a stroke width, then by all means, let's do one. So what would our stroke weight be? Well, let's look at theirs. Their stroke weight was 1 because it's mainly a line. I'm gonna do mine to be, I like a cool 9, Now, if you guys can look, this is kind of hard to see, and who knows why. And you guys know why? It's because I put, one second. Oh wait, copy this down, you guys. So the stroke weight, remember, is basically how the thickness of our drawing will look like. Let's first do our stroke, and then we'll put the stroke weight. How about that? I think that's a better idea. Stroke. So what would our stroke be? Our stroke. Let's try our stroke to be, really whatever numbers you could think of. We could do maybe a 0, a 50, and 100. And then we got a fair blue stroke. Hit enter. Now let's do the stroke weight. Oh, I spelled that. stroke weight, let's make it 10. So now you can notice, now this is a bit thick, okay? So I think you guys have pretty much got the main basics of this. I know we'll look at a bit more parts. Now I'm not gonna end the video yet, but let's look at our code. Okay, so what have we done so far, and what have we created? We created a canvas 600 by 400, the background 11575. Then we created an ellipse, and then we made a 25, 100, and 200 as the fill. We didn't give it a stroke. Now remember, if you put stroke and then you put 0, it'll just go at a blast. You need to do this. And then why this? This basically means that there's nothing inside the parentheses. Ellipse. We created an ellipse of 70, 30, 50, 45 at position 70x, 30y, 50 is the width, and 45 is the length. The fill is 80, 40, and 70 for our square. Our strokes were 0, 50, and 100, and our stroke width was 10. Then our square was at 60 on the x, 80 on the y, and 75 and width. Okay, so I think we've understood our code pretty well. I think there might be just one more thing, and I want to show you guys. And I mean, this is something that I really would like to show you guys. Let's put 2 enters after this thing just to give it a bit more space from the rest of the code. Okay, at 11. Let's give it one more. Let's see what at 11. Actually, no, let's do 12. Let's just backface that. Okay, let's do it at 11. So here I'm going to do something that might be a bit interesting to you guys. If you go to the references, I don't know if it would be there. Oh yeah, here it is. For our cinnamon. One thing I like to do actually first is I want to work on something called an ellipse mode. An ellipse mode is basically like this. It basically can show you where the position of the ellipse is going to be. You know, it's kind of a great way of like giving it a place without like telling you where you'd like it to be. Let's try the ellipse radius, the ellipse mode radius. So what would that mean? Well, here's our ellipse, okay, and we already like did a bunch of stuff with it. But let's move this actually back. Let's backface that. Let's take the background. Let's kind of just move all of that back. Not before the background, that. Right after the background. So this back. And before the fill, we're going to do something called the ellipse mode radius. So let's just copy that. This basically gives us a position of where we'd like to put our ellipse. Ellipse mode radius. And then I think that's a pretty interesting way, you know, of getting it set up. So now you guys know the fill, the stroke, and the no stroke. I've used the stroke weight. We created a few of our own shapes. We used the fill, like I said, no stroke, and then created ellipse. So this, like I said, is just some of the basics of our sketch. I might make a video way after this, or maybe one more, and then maybe after a long time. So you guys can reread your code and just look at it, just see it play. Now, obviously, we didn't make much. We just made a square and an ellipse. Now, let's actually change the ellipse to, let's see what happens if we change this thing to, I'm going to change it to center. Change it to center. Now, kind of just moves to the center. So we can move it to the, let's actually move it to the corner, because I think the corner is a great place. And let's move it. Okay, I think this looks way better, honestly. Because it sounds like a very differently spaced. So here's a challenge I'm gonna leave for the end of the video. I'm gonna end it now. Is create your own shape, choosing your own colors, using your own ellipse mode, your no strokes, your fills. So these are the shapes, and then just send it to me if you choose to do this. Triangles, squares, rectangles, quadrilaterals, which is again four sides, lines, circles, which are kind of like ellipses. So, and then maybe you can choose all of them, one of them, a couple of them, and move them wherever you'd like. Now remember, you can't move this. You can't like drag and drop these things. Yeah. Also, what would happen if I did that? This would like show if you listed lots of lines of code for those like master coders who like to want to put so much. Remember, just 16 lines of code, which we probably didn't use all 16. We only made this much. Yeah, this is actually a lot because it takes a lot of time to make very little, and that's basically how it is. So I'm gonna end the video now, and I'll come back and maybe make one more video about this. Okay.